So welcome to the Family First Life Solidity team call. My name is Marichal. It is January 12th of 2023. So we are going into week 3 of January. Super excited for our special guest on the call today. We have Freddie Marichal. Now, Freddie, I knew how to say it before Christina messed it up. I just want you to know that, Marichal.
I know you did.
Marichal.
You got it. The pleasure's all mine. Honestly.
And we appreciate you being on, Freddie. And just to brag on Freddie, really quickly, I've had the opportunity to be able to, meet with Freddie, see different trainings from Freddie, and just see how he really runs in the field in his business. Because, I'm always bumping into his clients, and they're like, "We're all set. Freddie was here, right?" So if you're on this call and you're thinking, "Hey, am I listening to the right person?" There's not a better person I think that could be on this call. In terms of training and actual hands-on things that you can do and take away from today, that it's going to make the next couple of weeks better for you. So Freddie, without further ado, thanks for being on with us today.
Thank you. Oh my God, the blessing is all mine to be part of this team call. I mean, see you guys be present here, be able to help us well. I mean, thank you for the opportunity, no doubt.
Absolutely. And just to kind of jump into things, Freddie, if you don't mind, just a little bit of your background. What were you doing before Family First Life? What got you looking into the industry, and why Family First Life?
Why not, right? Why not Family First Life? But honestly, to be honest, I had no clue about Family First Life until I started watching some TikTok on some people making really good money here. First thing I thought, I was like, okay, this is probably a scam. But for me, it was like, let me find out. I mean, I'm not doing any better. I mean, I was working in the bank as a financial advisor, and the hours were long. The cases and the feedback and me getting back to clients was a little bit of a headache. And ultimately, I wasn't working for myself, so I wasn't like satisfied where I was, and I wanted more. So I didn't come from like a difficult position. I was paying my bills. I was able to do other fun stuff, but I wanted more. And for me, it's always about thinking about like the future, right? I wanted to be able to be set for my future family. So I wanted to build now that I don't have kids before, I have kids, and it's like, oh, actually I can't make any dramatic move like that because, I don't want to put my family at risk. So I just found the opportunity. I was like, there's only one way to find out. Let me join. And it's crazy how I joined because I just filled out like a survey on the website, Family First Life. And then Eric Schmidt just contacted me, and then from there we just started, which is pretty wild, to be honest.
That's awesome. And honestly, I knew like part of that story, the TikTok part, but I mean, just the whole story. And you talking about wanting more, right? And you talking about, hey, I'm young. Let me take the risk now versus later, right? Like, and I respect that. Like you said, you weren't in an awful place, but you were in a place of wanting more. And I think that even in this, industry, Freddie, it's great how you came in. You're like, hey, I watched a TikTok, right? Like, shout out to TikTok, because you're crushing it and you're helping so many other people here. So just wanting more. And then also just, guys, think about the simplicity behind that. And that's no disrespect to you, Freddie, right? It's like you were just applying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Freddie filled out a very basic survey that probably asked for his name, his phone number, where he lives, and his email, right? And
That's right.
boom, on the phone, and he's up and going and crushing it, right? So, Freddie, before we actually go in a couple more questions, what did you wrap the year up? How many families did you help in 2022?
I think it was like 550 to
550, right?
150 families. Yeah, pretty impressive.
Awesome. That's huge. That's huge, guys. So, like, let's really think about that. Like, yeah, let's go is right. So without further ado, Freddie, looking kind of from a scope and also just being able to hear from people like Aphrodite who are in an office with you and being able to see you train, there's no doubt that you're committed and you're dedicated, right? Like to this actual business and to the process, right? Because every day isn't necessarily your funnest day, right? So like, what is dedication and commitment to this process and to this business? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I mean, to start last year, I remember you invited me to kind of similar call like this, and like, what's the goal Hall of Fame? So I just peeled back the onion, right? Like how many families I needed to protect, like for that specific month in order to be successful. And it came down to just 35 families. And I was like, that's very doable, in a consistent month. And then, there's some months 5 weeks, you catch momentum and you're going to do 50, 60 families, like Rami does consistently. So God bless you for that. And then, after you learn that and you kind of get better, you know, it's always just kind of focusing on like the basic, right? I'm a huge Kobe Bryant fan, and he's all about the fundamentals, right? Like before, obviously, you can run, you have to obviously learn how to walk and everything like that. But when it comes to here, it's like you have to buy enough leads, you have to make enough calls, and you have to book enough appointments. Like as long as you're focusing on just that on your specific dial day, and not like, oh, what's tomorrow's gonna be, or you know, I don't have enough appointments, or all of this, you know, instead of just getting excited for the future, just focus on the things you can do right now within the next hour or so, the next 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, instead of like, oh my God, I don't know if I don't have enough appointments by 4, you know, and the wife calls me, I'm gonna be freaking out and all that. No, no, no. Just focus on now and what you can do to get better. So honestly, I think it's just the biggest thing is just break down the process, right? Focus on a, you know, a day-to-day task, and then ultimately you're gonna get to a final goal, which is gonna be, you know, 400 families, 500 families, 600 families. It doesn't really matter. But at that point, you're gonna catch momentum and you're gonna remain consistent. Because if you're not doing that after like 21 days, you're probably gonna have some type of anxiety, you know, which happens to me all the time. So hopefully that.
Absolutely. And that did answer my question. I love how you talked about like focusing on the basics, because at the end of the day, like this business, it's very simple in terms of the what you have to do, but it can be difficult in terms of it can be hard on your mindset. So I
Mm-hmm.
love how you also incorporated there, Freddie. You talked about focus on the task at hand. Don't focus on what's going to happen tonight. Don't focus on what's going to happen tomorrow. Focus on what you can do right now. And Freddie, how many times have you picked the phone up for an hour? Right? Does it happen every time? No. How many times have you picked the phone up for an hour intentionally just dialing, and you had like no appointments? You're like, my next 2 days are a mess. You pick the phone up for an hour, you book 8 more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because you went back to the basics, right? So I love that. You're like, the task at hand, don't worry about the future, because anxiety is definitely a real thing in this business. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
if I can't help any families this week? What if I can't book any appointments? What if my leads don't come in? What, like, you know, we can all fill in a what if. And it's like, what if we stop doing that? How much healthier would our mindset be, right? So I
Amen.
love that, Freddie. And I think that that goes to show like you're committed and dedicated, because you're committed and dedicated to your day-to-day disciplines, right? And that's
Amen.
huge.
Amen. And honestly, Marisa, just to piggyback on that, I mean, honestly, when you get anxiety, it's because you're not doing enough work. That's another thing. Like if you're complaining, you get a little anxiety, you're not putting enough work. Because if you really focus on the task, you don't even have time to like think or analyze. You're like, all right, next call, Miss Mary didn't want it. Okay, let me focus on Bob now. You know, and then you just keep going and running the numbers. And then sooner or later, you look at your schedule right before lunch and you're like, you know, at 10, 12 appointments. You're like, all right, well, let me take a lunch and then just get back at it for the second half of the day. So just focus on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, and that's huge too, because it's like if we overcomplicate this process, it's going to be overcomplicated. And at the same
Mhm.
time, Freddie, I love how you said, you know, the only time you'll have anxiety, like almost like Freddie, you're like, when you're in the field, do you have time to have anxiety? Just
No.
no, right? Like you got appointments, or your activity is at such a high level that it's like you're not anxious because you know you did the work. You know
Yeah.
you made the dials. And then the times that you didn't make the dials, right, Freddie? We all had our week, our day, right? The time you didn't make the dials, that's when you see the anxiety come and you're like,
Mhm.
it's a mask. It's the work I didn't do that's building the anxiety. And I
Mhm.
love how you just put that into perspective, Freddie. Actually, that really helped my mindset out a lot too. So shout out to you on that for sure.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you
you.
talked a little bit you know, about this, like your schedule, right? Like your consistent schedule and like protecting that dial time. What would you say are almost like you talked a little bit about this, like the repercussions of not protecting that dial time and not doing the disciplines or not doing what you said you were going to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole mess. I mean, early in the business, I learned that the most important days are dial days in this business because it's gonna determine your week. It's gonna determine the next following days. And honestly, if I can be honest with you and transparent, like my most focused days are dial days, Monday and Thursdays. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want anybody to see me, look at me, or anything like that. I mean, we can have a quick conversation at lunch, but I just want to book on my appointments to know that I have enough confidence going into the next couple run days, because I know it's just super important. Even if I don't have enough appointments, gives me at least a guy where I'm gonna be door knocking instead of just randomly trying to figure out the night before where I'm gonna be going, you know, and that's just a lot more stressful, to be honest. So those are payday right there.
Absolutely. On dial day, it's payday because on the run days we just go and we help families and we pick up the check, right? And
Collecting checks.
love it, love it. And you know, you kind of talked a little bit about this, but in terms of like, okay, so like your dial time, it's protected. Like Freddie's like, okay, on Monday and Thursday, like don't call me unless it's for a team
It's an
call. I'll
emergency.
tune in, right? Yeah, like emergency team call right now. But he's serious though. He's like, hey, like I got to get this done because if I don't, the repercussion is going to be the feeling that you have to feel. So it's like, guys, the only time we're feeling that is when we don't get the work done, right? Like the repercussion for me when I don't dial is I have to sit there for the next 2 days and be like, okay, well, now I just lost 3 days. If you don't dial Monday, you lost Tuesday and Wednesday. You didn't just lose Monday, guys. If you don't dial Thursday, you lost Friday, Saturday. You didn't just lose Thursday. So you have to put that into perspective and think about how is this going to impact my mindset? Like for me not to do, right? So that's why Freddie's a doer. Now you talked a little bit about this. You know, high activity is obviously important, but leads are really important as well, and having that proper lead flow, right? So people talk about, you know, high activity and leads kind of coinciding. Like, talk to us a little bit about that and kind of what that looks like and why it feels a lot healthier on one side of like having leads versus maybe not having enough leads.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I mean, to start off, I like you gotta kind of like know the business and understand a little bit. I want to have at least 80 fresh leads to myself. Like, could be secondhand leads, but at least new to me, meaning like the clients doesn't have my number that I've called them like probably 15, 20 times, right? So it's brand new to them. And then with that being said, also, I also want to kind of work on my old leads that I probably didn't get, like, you know, didn't dial enough as well. So I'll pile them in together, kind of fit my schedule and have two piles because I have like two phones. And then I have two headphones too. So I just be going back and forth, trying to book up. But obviously enough leads gives you the opportunity where you're gonna have enough pickups, you're gonna have enough conversations. And at the end of the day, if you're having enough conversations and you have a structured script, you're gonna book enough appointments. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for enough pickups. And also whenever you're dialing the leads, I mean, I like to kind of like trick the clients themselves a little bit. What I mean by that is like I will pick one specific pile and dial with one phone, and then right before I move from that pile, I just switch on my other phone and dial with that pile and just go back and forth. And they'll be like, Freddie, you just called me like an hour ago. I said, oh, no, that's the other Freddie in the other office. No, no, no. I'm the supervisor. And then it's a whole new story. But it's also having fun with the dial day. I mean, it is stressful, it is a little overwhelming, and it's probably like the most work you're gonna do. But if you don't have fun with it, you're just gonna have a miserable time. So just try to enjoy it.
That's so true. And I love how you talked about 80 new leads to me, right? Like they never saw my phone number. I never called them. And at the same time, that's so important, guys. Like the 80 new leads to me. Like again, they can be second chance, but make sure if you're not getting the result you want, like you're getting with your mentor, because that 80 new leads or 160 new leads in a week, it's going to give you not only the proper lead flow to be able to dial, but if Freddie's dialing through his 160 leads a week, he's not confused that if he can't book the appointments, he can just go door knocking, right? He's like, I got plenty of activity here. Versus if he has 50 new leads in a week, he's like, every person I talk to, I have to book them. And he's working from a mindset of being desperate, right? Like, and Freddie's not desperate, right? Freddie realized quick. He's like, I'm not desperate. Like, I'm going to buy the leads, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, you
And I
gotta think
love it.
about it. I don't know who used it, but they use the analogy to dating, right? Like if you're, you know what I mean? If you're talking to somebody, you know, you don't want to seem too, you know, thirsty or desperate when you're talking to that person. So you kind of want to keep your options open. That's kind of how it narrows it down to. So like, and the clients will tell, like they'll know if you're trying to like really book that appointment just based on your tone in that conversation. If you're having like a smooth conversation, like, oh, honestly, like I'm seeing another 15 families tomorrow. I'm gonna see if I can squeeze you in. What time you typically back home from work? That's a different conversation than like, oh yeah, what time you usually arrive on Fridays from work? It's like, huh? No, I'm not interested. No. You're trying to sell me something. So they'll be able to tell over the phone if you're actually like super busy and like you really mean it, or you're not. You're just looking to obviously book that 25 lead that you have there, hoping you can get 20 appointments out of 25. So Lord have mercy.
Right. they can definitely hear it, just like in home. They can feel it, right? They can feel it if your vibe's off or you're nervous or you're like, you don't know where you're going, so to say.
That's
So
right.
absolutely. And I love how you also talked about like having fun with it, right? Like Freddie, you're dialing two phones, you're dialing out because you're like, how fast can I make these dials go and get these
That's
appointments,
right.
right? Not because you're trying to think that you have people think there's two Freddies. It's like, you're like, hey, that's just the easiest way for me to swing it. And I kind of get a good laugh out of it, right? Having
That's
fun
right.
with the process is important, right? So guys, think about that. Like if Freddie's dialing two phones and I'm dialing one, like who's going to get a better result that day? Probably Freddie, you know what I mean? So find things like that you can implement. Sometimes on dial team, you guys will text me like, are you dialing on two phones? Like, yes, ma'am. Like, you know what I mean? Like the best way to get it done. So I hear you on that, Freddie. So, and have fun with it. And then talk to us a little bit about like, Freddie, when you came in, did you struggle at all with kind of getting or finding that sweet spot of having to buy enough leads, or were you just kind of like right away you bought enough leads?
Yeah, so yes, and so my first 2 weeks I struggled, and it was the same thing. I literally bought 100 leads, and I thought I was gonna like, I don't know, help 80 families from those 100 leads. I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't know better. So I learned that I need to. I after that I became a lead junkie. I had a conversation with Eric. He told me, "Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Even myself, I buy enough leads because I don't want to sound too desperate. I don't want to sound like I need them." And you want to, take a lot of bats. You want to have a lot of practice in the beginning. And also they were internet leads. So like, I need to understand like, that's a numbers game. Let's be honest. It's not like a mortgage appointment or a mortgage form that you're going to get. So after he mentioned that, then my strategy was, okay, I need to buy from, at that point was between 100 to 120 leads every dial day, just for me to have enough to be able to see enough families. And that changed the game for me, right? And also remaining coachable. I wasn't really coachable in the beginning. I thought I knew it all, which was not true. And I found out when I was going broke, and I was like, okay, I gotta figure this thing out. This is not the solution. So, I kind of like putting your ego on the side and then understanding that, whoever hire you, whoever's in your team, who's a top producer, just have a conversation with them, see how they can help you, see what they're doing on a daily basis, so you can kind of better yourself, and then learn from them on a consistent basis. Like, I mean, I'm asking Rami, like I even call Rami sometimes on in-home just so he can help me out with like a product. Like, I'm not afraid to like follow up, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that family is protected. So if I don't know the answer, I need to find out before I leave.
Absolutely. And, it's important, like you said, like with the leads, you're not coming from a place of desperation. Your first couple of weeks, you mentioned, hey, I wasn't really that coachable. I got 100 leads. I love how you said that. I got 100 leads and I thought I was going to help 80 families, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like reality check, right? However, the coachability piece came into play when you were like, hey, this is whatever I'm doing is not working. So I need to become coachable and remain coachable. And it seems like you've remained coachable from what we're seeing anyways, but if you didn't take that step back, it would have been that much harder, right? So really quick, just hit one last time on leads. How important, Freddie, do you feel like it is for folks to have a reoccurring lead order in any way, shape, or form? Like no matter what avenue that's down, like how
Yeah.
important do you think that is?
I think it's a game changer, to be honest. What? Because I mean, even for me, I've been doing this for a year now. I feel like sometimes you kind of get into the thing where like I don't really have to invest in leads. I'm kind of like a professional at it. Like I should be good enough with like 20 leads, moving forward. And it's like no, 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 no. So having those recurring campaigns not only helps you in regards to work ethic, because obviously you see the money coming out, you're like the night before, you're like, all right, I gotta work tomorrow, right? I can't be just cuddling all day to tomorrow. So and then with that also, it allows you to be consistent and remain obviously profitable in regards to your business, because now you're like, okay, not only I have to make that money back, but I do also have to serve a bunch of families that are obviously looking for help, right? So I think for me that changed everything, because I got a lead campaign probably like 3 months into the business. I was just buying it from other people, and that was a game changer for sure, no doubt.
Absolutely. It pushes you to work. It pushes you to action. It pushes you to get uncomfortable. It pushes you to do all those things that you don't necessarily want to do. It pushes you to dial, right? Like Freddie said, if you see that money coming out, you're like on dial day, you have your two phones out, you're ready. Like, and that's really important. So if you're not on any type of reoccurring lead order, reach out to your upline, myself, look into it. That's something that can literally be a game changer. Freddie just mentioned it was a game changer for him, it was also a huge game changer for me. So when I leveled up my business and started being able to write over 30K a month was when I have a lot of reoccurring campaigns on because it forced me to action. Now, next question, I'm going to kind of, I guess, spin it a little bit.
Uh-oh.
You know, well, hey, this is actually good. Obviously, you're doing really well and you're predominantly in home. Is that right, Freddie?
Oh yeah,
All right.
like
But do you
90%.
do, okay, you do like some telesales here or there if you're like in the field.
Yeah, so like for example, it depends. Like for me, I like to serve, I like help the client however they want to be served. I mean, sometimes I'm meeting people in Dunkin' Donuts, some people I'm meeting in their house, others they just want to do it over the phone. So I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter as long as I know they're gonna be like legit, like yes, we're having that conversation. You're not gonna just like forget about me. But yeah, I'll help them with telesales. I send them all my credentials through text. I don't complicate it with Zoom. I don't complicate it with email. I keep it short and simple. I want to make it fast and efficient the process, and then from they just help them out, just like you were doing it in home. You just transfer it to the phone. If they give you any type of objections and you know they have an iPhone, FaceTime them. Hey, really quick, pick up the FaceTime. All right, cool.
Love
Yep, this
that.
is my face. This is my ID. You can see me. I'm not here trying to scam you. Look, I'm actually right what I told you, Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. I told you, man, I'm on the road. So and then they'll know, okay, this is a legit person. And then honestly, sometimes I've done it where I do a telus on the same like area I am for the date, and I'd like drop by, leave my information on the mailbox, and I send them a text message with like the picture. So there's little things like that that you do just to make sure it's real. So
I like that a lot. And just to kind of, you actually hit on this a little bit, but Freddie, so of course, when you go into the home, or you're on the phone, like you said, I love how you mentioned, you're like, it really doesn't matter where I am. I can be at Dunkin' Donuts with the person, I can be at their, place of business, whatever it might be, as long as they're attentive to me, right?
mhm.
How do you make sure that your potential client, knows that you guys are indeed going to be doing business that day, whether it be on the phone, on Zoom, at Dunkin' Donuts, or at their house?
Yeah. So I do kind of free fall to be honest. I obviously do my structure ahead of time, right? I let them know the things the insurance company are gonna need. I always blame it on the insurance company or the office, never on myself. They need it, not me. Doesn't really matter. And I tell them the structure. I mean, obviously, for anything that you're gonna qualify with insurance, I mean, before you can actually purchase it, you do have to qualify through the carrier. So in order for us to do it, we will submit an application for coverage, right? We'll give the insurance company about 3 to 5 business days for them to decide on you. At that point, if you were to qualify, which is great, hey, praying on the Lord, you qualify. You'll receive your policy. First initial premium will go out. And at that point, we have a 30-day window for you to obviously analyze the policy, and we can modify anything if needed. And then, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And before that, I obviously got, I introduced myself. I got the why. We already know we're moving forward. And then most likely or not, I probably already broke down the budget, so I already know what they're looking for, right? If it's like funeral expenses or cremation. And then from there, I just want to be very transparent. I tell them, listen, I want to be very sincere, transparent on the things needed for us to move forward and actually get you qualified. I'm not a quote god. I am not, somebody who just goes around and gives quotes. I'm actually the local underwriter. So that's the reason I'm assigned to your case. And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, all right, cool. And kind of get the
Awesome.
process
So,
going.
and then you just go for it. And with setting that expectation, again, no matter where you are, in home, on the phone, etc., you're able to just get that point across that, hey, we are indeed applying for coverage today. And I don't make the decision, but they make the decision, right? We
That's
blame
right.
they, right? So
That's right.
they always know that, you're going to be submitting an application for coverage. So when you get to that point, Freddie, no one's confused, right?
Nope, no, not at all. And I've gone into houses or even over the phone where they're like, okay, do you need my social account number now? I'm like, honestly, so we can be fast and efficient. Yeah, what is it? And I just take notes. I'm like, all right, this is great. And something I've been using on telesales for a lot of like our older clients is enrollment package. So in order for me to submit this enrollment package, because they used to Medicare, it makes it easy on the phone instead of qualifying. So in order for us to submit this enrollment package for the life insurance, they would need this information. Then okay, that makes sense. So
Okay, I love that. And again, it goes back to conceptual selling. It's just a concept. You're just using a word to kind of as filler. And I love how you talked about it doesn't matter where you are, because I always talk about this too. I'm like, if I'm doing an appointment on Zoom in person, on the phone, I still say everything I'm going to say. I'm not going to like shorten it or take pieces out or tiptoe around it because it's, you know, a telesale and maybe that's not necessarily what I'm used to. You're going to still shoot them straight, just like you're at home. What's the worst they're going to do? Hang up on you, right? Like no
Okay,
big,
okay.
right? Like
Thank
we're
you.
like,
I saved
okay.
the drive.
So there we go. Exactly. Love it. Love it.
God bless you. God bless you, Bob.
Legit, legit. Yep. And you know, last couple things I did want to wrap up with was you know, pretty much I think almost every time you've trained, you talk about high activity, but with intentionality. Will you talk to us a little bit about what high activity means to you in terms of income producing activities?
Yeah, so I mean, while like whenever I'm doing this, right, this is my career at the end of the day. I don't want to do a lot of thinking, right? So just like I'm remain very structured on my dial day, I want to do the same thing in the field. And like I said, I mean, if I have an appointment in a specific city, I want to do a door knock before my next appointment. Because like even on, for example, this week on Tuesday, it was crazy where I got like no show back to back in the same city. And then I did like 5 door knocks. 2 of them called me back. I was able to reschedule them for the same night. And those were the only 2 families I helped that day. It's crazy. Out of 10 appointments. So that's when he tells you, like, the moment you keep the high activity, you can't lose, right? The moment you get a little lazy, like, oh, no, I got to make it to my next appointment. Let me get there early. It's the moment you probably go 0 for 10 and you didn't help any family. So I feel for me, at least for me, I don't want to think about anything. I want to get emotional about any specific type of situation, even if they were super mean or anything happened. I want to make sure that it's like, okay, you're not interested on it, you don't want it, you push me, great, no worries. Let me go to my next family. They're probably looking forward. They probably didn't even put a phone number because they don't want to get scammed or something like that, which has happened a lot of times. So for me, just kind of just staying focused on tasks and like just maximizing the time I'm out there. That way, when I come home at the end of the night, I'm not like regretting any specific time. I actually like, all right, I felt good because I worked hard. I gave it my all, and you know, it's just the quarter ended, so the game ended. Now we gotta focus about tomorrow. One more day, for
Right.
sure.
And I love that. So really what you're saying, Freddie, is for every appointment that you have scheduled, when you leave that appointment, whether you help the family or you got no-showed or, you know, they didn't want the coverage or whatever it might have been, you go and you do 2 door knocks.
Boom. Yep. The
Even
same.
if you're going to be late. Like you're like, I'm an hour late, but I'm doing these 2 door knocks. And why is that, Freddie?
So honestly, I've noticed a lot of times when I was doing door knocks, I'm not sure if it's just me, they always wanted to reschedule. They always wanted to be for a following day. It wasn't, and most of the time it wasn't like on that specific day that I wanted to be served, especially if they didn't have any phone numbers. So I was like, okay, I might as well do a door knock because worst case scenario, I can schedule for tomorrow or the following run day. And at least I'm already ahead of my schedule for the following week. In worst case scenario, I mean, even if I help them then, that's probably going to be 15, 20 minutes. And then I can still make it on my next family. And then on my dial day, I already set this in. Whenever I talk to my clients, I tell them, give me a wiggle room because of traffic, other families. I even lie and tell them, listen, I have an 81-year-old lady right before you. So just give me a wiggle room because, you know, I'm going to take my time with her. I'm sure you understand. And they're like, yeah, I appreciate that. I'm like, perfect. Thank you so much. So I'm typically like an hour late to all my appointments. I'm just going to be honest. I am. But they're there. The people who want the insurance, they're going to be home. This,
Absolutely.
yeah. Because it's the same thing for like, you know what I mean? If you want cable, you're going to wait for that cable guy. If they tell you, hey, listen, I'm going to make it between 9 and 5, you're going to be like right here. All right. What's the cable guy? I'm waiting for him. You know? Same thing with insurance. You know?
Yep. Absolutely. And Freddie, you just made just like a huge point there because it's like, hey, not only can you go home and feel better about yourself, like I put in my highest activity, I gave the best version of myself, but it's like you might get no-showed at your next one. Like you don't know. You just don't know. And also you're setting the stage for the next couple of days. So it's not necessarily you're saying, hey, I might not door knock and get right in the house, but I door knock and set it for my next run day. And I'm essentially setting up presets at that point. Now you're going into the office, you're feeling yourself. You're like, I already got 8 booked for Friday, right? And you're like, let's go, right? Like you're like, because I door knocked, right? And and that's a good feeling. And I love how you talked about, you know, like not everybody's gonna want your help. And you're an hour late to your appointments, right? I'm gonna pause at the hour late to appointments.
Got it.
Now, from what I know on this call, like between just me, Rami, and Freddie, I'm just gonna hit on just us 3 right now. I know that all three of us are typically at least an hour late. And it's not because we don't care. Actually, it's because we really do care. So we love the one we're with, but the activity is so high that it's like, I'm going to be late anyways, right? Like, Freddie, you're like, oh, I have an appointment in Swampscott. And then you're like, you're like at 1:00. Then you schedule like a 1:30 for like, Stoughton, right? You're like, I'll get there, right? You'll get there when you get there, right? Things are going to happen. So to overbook yourself is actually better because like Freddie's talking about, he's not in the field like, oh, I wonder, I have to wait till my 5:30. He's like, all right, dude, I'm already an hour late. I got 2 door knocks to do. I got to keep it moving, right? Like there's no time to think and feel bad for yourself, right? So
right.
I love that. And I think if we could all implement 2 door knocks in between each appointment, it would literally propel everybody's business. At least minimum, Freddie, would you say at least minimum 5 families a month?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And when you get better, you'll probably do like 2 or 3 a week. Yeah, no doubt. It's a no-brainer.
Just that compounding effect, right? Like
100%.
Freddie didn't start door knocking yesterday.
No, definitely not. And it was nerve-wracking. It's a scary thing if you think about it, right? Like to door knock somebody, especially, I mean, in New England, like at 4 p.m. it's like nighttime. You're like door knocking somebody. Miss Mary's like, but it's nighttime. You're like, Miss Mary, it's like 5:30. What are you talking about? Like, it's 5:30. You haven't had dinner yet. I'm just here to get you the information about the life insurance. Okay, honey. So
Right.
I mean, sometimes those little fears, it's just us. We're creating the fear. At the end of the day, if they want the insurance, it doesn't matter if you show up at 9:15. I've done it before. They're gonna be like, yeah, well, come in. We'll get it done. Because they never know. You never know when that time is gonna be for them. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Freddie, thank you so much. You added a ton of value today for sure. And the last question I want to wrap up with are 2 questions. So I lied. Did you attend annual convention last year, which I know you did? And if so, how did it help you level up your business this year?
100% yes. And then number 2 helped me to make it to Hall of Fame because I knew the specific things necessary for me to be a Hall of Famer, right? And then the final thing I want to say, if you miss convention, honestly, you're probably not going to be in Family First Life in 6 months from now. You're just not. You're not. You're not going to have that juice. Convention just gives you that juice for the rest of the year. Like right now, we're probably, we need a little juice. So we're looking forward. But once we hit after convention, it's like, all right, let's go. We're all about Family First Life. We got the Kool-Aid, let's help and serve families. So it's a game changer.
Sure. Absolutely. And sometimes the Kool-Aid's a good thing. Like in this case, like Freddie's like, let's all go get the Kool-Aid because if this is our career and this is our life, we need to be there, guys. It's the one time a year everybody gets together. As Freddie mentioned, he's like, hey, it helped me get a roadmap on how I want to hit my goal. Freddie mentioned last year he was on the call and I asked him, hey, what's your goal? And he mentioned Hall of Fame. Here he is, Hall of Fame producer, crushing it, right? He's like, next, right? Like, what's next, right?